I have a dream, oh, I have a dream. Red, white, and blue, fly free, fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me?
Welcome to Changing Times, everyone out there. It is November the 10th, Wednesday. Tomorrow will be Veterans Day. So we do say to all the veterans and their families that you all are heroes of ours. And we thank you so much for your service, your dedication, and your love for our country and your country. And I'll be at the Ozark Senior Center tomorrow for their veterans lunch, and I will be have a part in the program. And so I'm just very blessed to be able to do that tomorrow. There'll be all kinds of programs going on over our country as our veterans are so important. And I believe that we ought to have, and Don, thank you for your service.
Welcome.
Don Blackard, my co-host. I mean, honestly, served 3 years?
6 years total, 15 months in a combat zone.
I tell you, and so a hero right here by us, and I thank you so much. And I always tell people, Veterans Day ought to be celebrated every day of the year. We should be doing something for our veterans every day of the year. But anyway, we are at the headquarters of Axe Media Group in Springfield, Missouri. Did anybody see the beautiful sky this morning as the sun was coming up? It was blues and pinks and oranges. It's just absolutely beautiful. So in Missouri, where we are, Southwest Missouri, it is one of the prettiest areas in the country. And we see these sunrises and sunsets many times. And so this is the last day of a really pretty day in the 60s before we start heading into some cooler weather again. But Changing Times is a show about social issues, and today we're going to be talking to Mark McKnelly, a friend of ours, and you know, I've known Mark and his younger brother Matt for quite some time, and he's got a story. I want everyone to listen because he's got a story about how he is helping to fight poverty and homelessness, and he's done it through his book, and I'm going to show you a picture of his book right now. But it's called Change for the Poor. Change for the Poor. I really like the title. I like the picture of just a few pennies and a nickel and a dime on this book. And inside there, we're going to go over, and Don and I are going to go over a lot of the chapters and talk about some of the valuable lessons that we can all learn. And for you all out there, I know that there are people in all 50 states watching right now. You're listening to us right now and around the world. And there are people everywhere that can do some of these techniques and actually help the poor, the hungry, the homeless. You can help those people by doing some of the same things that Mark has done in his book through Schweitzer Church in Springfield, Missouri, and now through Victory Mission. And so one of the things that we always do is, Don, what do we always want people to do about
we want them to go to Axe Ministry, so over to AMG and like them so that you can follow all our shows. And then you can also see us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Rumble, and Daily Motion. But if you haven't liked us on Facebook, go over and do that so you can share our show.
Very good. And then one of the things that, you know, I noticed that someone, and I hope we did respond to him, I've been kind of sick this last week. From Wednesday to Wednesday, I've been having different episodes of health issues myself, and kind of put me on the back burner a little bit. But I did notice that someone had responded. So we want you to respond. You can send a message to Axe Media Group's Facebook page for Don and I. And then you can, I'll do my email and Don will do hers. But Lynn, L-Y-N-N, Morris, M-O-R-R-I-S, Lynn Morris 2012 at gmail.com. You can send me any kind of message. Let us know what you think about our show. Do you like our topics? What could we do better? What can we help you with? Because that's what the whole idea is. This Axe Ministry group is a media group, is actually all volunteers. Don and I volunteers. Matt, our producer, is a volunteer. And Jim Whining, our CEO, the head of the Acts Ministry Group. He's a volunteer. They're all volunteers. All the ministers, everybody are volunteers in this group. We're non-denominational, and we serve everyone, and we serve one God. And so in your email,
mycreativeworkhorse@gmail.com.
boy, see, you can tell she is creative compared to me, because I just got my simple name and you've got my creative workhorse. See, so there you go. There you go. But you can send a message to an email message to Dawn Blackard, and she will, and she'll respond. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We also have something really special coming up with Acts Media Group here on November 21st. We're going to have a special Veterans Day episode, because we have a veterans church here, and we want to honor Bruce Pearson, because he was the founder of the veterans church that started with Acts, and today is the 1-year anniversary of him passing, but his legacy and his memory lives on, and we want everybody to tune in on November 21st for that special Veterans Day church, and it's right here on AMG.
I think they're going to have a special day that day and do some honoring of Mr. Pearson. And Matt, our producer, is his son.
Absolutely.
And also served in the military. And so we thank Matt for his service too. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Mark McKnelly, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
Well,
thanks for having me.
Well, you're sure welcome. We appreciate you being here today, and we're going to kind of start out about. Let's start out about when you were working at Schweitzer Methodist Church here in Springfield, Missouri, and you developed a program, and then you wrote a book, Change for the Poor. You wrote this book during the COVID season when a lot of us were told to stay home, and you did something worthwhile with your time where some people did not, but you did. So that was really good. And this is really a book that's going to help a lot of people. But so it kind of started back then, right?
It really did. I came out of 20 years of my own addiction and left my old life, and I left business career pretty much. I was an entrepreneur, loved to start and grow businesses, and had a thriving business that my addiction cost me. And so when I moved into vocational ministry at Schweitzer on the east side of Springfield, I, was a new believer in my late 30s, and didn't even really know a lot about vocational ministry. And so the pastor and the staff there, they were very gracious to try me out in some front door ministry, to try me out and, take some Sunday school classes after a couple of years, see if I could do any teaching. But really, in those first 3 or 4 years, it was obvious that I had a heart for people in addiction, a heart for the people in what I call in the book extreme poverty. And I contrast relief and restoration. There are people who just fall on hard times, right? They just need a little bit of wind in the sails, kind of. And
right.
Victory Mission has a emergency shelter for that. But my heart was for the person in what I call, again, extreme poverty. That is material and relational poverty, like broke financially and broken relationally. And so they just really need to build a life from the ground up. And there aren't a lot of, certainly the government isn't offering a lot of social services that meet the deeper needs of why people are in cyclical, cycles of addiction and criminal behavior and these type of things. And so that was my heart. And I got the opportunity to plant a Sunday night outreach service at Schweitzer, and it was called Church at the Center. I've got the big logo. They did it for a little while after I left, and they still run the program that I put together to this day, but they sent me the big sign that was on the building there on East Sunshine. I've got it up in my office, but those were 5 years, very formational years. Some of the stories in the book are lessons that I learned in that. But what was born out of the Sunday night outreach service was just seeing people in cycles of poverty just go on the rotation. They knew where to get the free meals in town. They knew what churches would pay for the electric bills. They knew where they could get the bike when theirs stopped working. And I think I've given enough examples now, right? They know how to kind of work the system. Mm-hmm. And my heart was for that cycle to break.
Right.
How do we pull them out of need? Because as believers, our God is not a God of need, right? He's not a taking God. He's a giving God. And We're made in his image and likeness. So I'll try not to get to preaching, but
that's okay.
And so we put a 12-month program called the Life Change Plan there together. And I started to see, and I worked with other recovery housing, sober living programs across Springfield. And there's some great, by the way, recovery programming in Springfield across Missouri. I would say Springfield is probably doing it about as well as any community as far as providing sober living and treatment and opportunities. But I saw that there were 3 principles that were really necessary for somebody to come out of addiction, come straight out of jail and prison, out of a detox and experience in a stress unit or a detox experience, and really build their life from the ground up. And those 3 principles were relationship, structure, and accountability. And so those are kind of the big headers that you walk through when you go through Change for the Poor. And I really build out a lot of detail in how we build those out through processes and principles and classes and curriculum and counseling and getting them involved in a home church and all this. But I noticed that some programs would be really heavy on relationship, right? You'd have that person in the church, for example, and maybe the house mom, and, they'd just be loving on them. And that's great. But there wasn't a lot of structure. They didn't have enough curriculum, or they didn't have enough 24/7 scheduling, because a person coming out of street life or addiction, free time is not their friend.
Right.
And so in the early stages, you've really got to have a lot of structure, and then accountability. And I find in Christian recovery, that is one of the things lacking. And so in the final 5 chapters, I could step on some toes, I think, but that's where just you develop a relationship with this person in extreme poverty, and you just make that emotional, personal connection. And then you start to bail them out of the choices that they begin to make. And so in the accountability chapters, it really talks about you've got to allow them to experience the positive and negative choices. And that could mean that they leave your program.
Well, Mark, I think that the feeling that you have, or anyone has, that helps one of these people break the cycle, and become independent, and can take care of themselves again. It just has to be one of the greatest feelings that you could ever have. I mean, you're making so here's the deal. We've been doing this now for 30 this is our 32nd show.
Okay.
So we always look for difference makers. You are a difference maker, sir. Oh. You are a difference maker because of your program, because of the life you lived and the life you're living today, helping those people where they don't live those lives that we've lived in the past. Okay. And Dawn always calls be the change. She always says be the change. Right. Well, you are being the change too. Yeah. So we applaud you, because as we've done this show now for almost half a year, more than half a year now, we are finding people that are difference makers and being the change that can not just do it here in Springfield, Missouri, or we've had people up in Lee Summit and all around the area coming in here to this show, but we can have it in Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas. We can have it over in another country. We can have it anywhere. Someone can be like you. They can listen to you today, grab your book. We're going to talk to people about how you can buy your book,
get involved with
get involved with that and stuff like that, because this is very valuable information. And so
I already have multiple ministries from across the state that are buying multiple copies of the books for their team, churches and nonprofits that are looking forward to learning from.
Yeah.
And Lynn, let's bring up your book actually launched yesterday.
It launched last Friday. Today was the official launch date. So November 10th was when it was supposed to go live on Amazon, but they got it up early. It is available on Amazon. If you search Change for the Poor, you won't even get you finished with the POOR, and it'll auto-populate with my name. And so you should find it pretty easy on Amazon.
Well, let's talk about that just for a little bit. You're going to have a special for a couple of weeks that if someone wants to download it on Kindle, it's only 99 cents.
That's right. 99 cents for 2 weeks.
Highly encourage you to go ahead and get your Kindle version now. And then you also have it on paperback, and it's really reasonably priced, $11.99.
Yep.
And then you're going to be doing a book signing at ABC Bookstore on November 27th, and that's from 10 to 1.
10 a.m. to 1. So you're going to be out and about on Thanksgiving Saturday shopping, or, I'm going to pray we have good weather, right?
Yeah. And I would like to say this would be a good gift at Christmas. I'm going to pick up a book for my dad. He would really like this for someone that's in the ministry. But pick it up as a gift.
I put early on, in the book, who the book was for. And I think it is hardwired for the person that already has a burden for people in extreme poverty. But really, if you are a believer or even a non-believer and you see the issues of poverty in our community, and you see the issues of, the cycle of people coming in and out of jail and broken homes and all of this, and you don't really know how to address it, like how systemically and societally should we be addressing this book would help you, because the principles and the processes are universal, and they really can plug into different contexts: church benevolence, nonprofit, somebody that wanted to start really a program of their own, or even somebody, as I was mentioning to you earlier, that have family members struggling with addiction, and how do I help them? Because my help doesn't seem to be helping.
Right.
you know.
Right. Oh, that is great. So how would they get a hold of you concerning the book?
Yeah, changeforthepoor.org. I was able to get
changeforthepoor.org. That's
very great URL.
Yeah.
So, and on the website, you can get a link to the Amazon page. And then you can also find a little bit more out about me and the fact that I, due to the book and getting the word out about what I've learned, am available for speaking, for coaching, and working on a 4-hour workshop that churches or organizations could bring me in to lead.
Well, I like that God always knows what he's doing when he calls people, and he gets a little bang for his buck when he calls an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
because that's when you get the published work coming out that really will make change across the United States if people read it, because more and more people need to get involved, but they don't know how, like you're saying.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm already thinking of different people. I have a friend who runs a shelter in Houston, and I'm like, I need to send her this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been amazing for me to have such a dramatic story in terms of being 35 years old and becoming a new believer. And my conversion story was in the office of a Christian counselor. So I have the Paul on the road to Damascus story. It was just like, bam. Okay. God was basically saying, we're done with that. And you're going to be used for kingdom purposes. And I would have never 15 years ago had the slightest clue that I would be doing vocational ministry, authoring a book, helping Christians and organizations learn how to better effectively minister to people in extreme poverty.
Well, and as we know, the need's getting greater.
It really is.
All across the country, the need's getting greater. And so we all need to do our part, because it's everywhere you look now.
Yeah, and COVID actually made it worse. All of the funding allowed people in cycles of addiction to get access to funds that didn't address the core problems, but just put roofs over their head and just gave them services that kept them afloat, but didn't. And so when we see some of that funding kind of pull away, we're already seeing men and women engage programs like ours. So that's a good thing.
Well, guys, Thanksgiving's coming up and Christmas is coming up, and those are two major holidays in our country. And while they are very, very important holidays, they're really hard holidays for a lot of people. I heard today, least of these, which is all three of us in Christian County, that's our food pantry, and they're expecting. I mean, the demand for food has just astronomically gone up in Christian County, and they need more and more volunteers.
Right.
They don't have enough volunteers. They have so many families coming on board every week needing food. And it doesn't seem to be stopping. It's still climbing. The need is still climbing. And so just for the fact that, you want everyone to have a nice meal at Thanksgiving, you want them to have a nice meal at Christmas. But if there's any way to respond and to help these different agencies, like least of these or your agency, Victory Mission, you got to do it. You got to do it. I think, are we ready to take a break, Matt? We're going to take a break, and while we're taking the break, we're going to talk about our first sponsor. And then when we get through talking about our first sponsor, we'll go ahead and start the second half of the show. So the sponsor that we have to begin with, and we still have some openings, Don. So our goal for Don and I to have 5 sponsors to each get a minute of coverage each week, plus some other benefits, and being able to come in and be interviewed and talk about their business and things like this. And our very first sponsor that signed back up from my radio days of having my show for 7.5 years is Brad Pistole, Pistole. And you know, the neat thing about Brad is he is in Ozark, Missouri. He is a fiduciary financial planner, certified financial planner, and he is located in Ozark, Missouri at 5511 Farmer Branch Road, Ozark. And his business is called Trinity Insurance Financial Insurance and Financial Services is what it's really called. He's got a very important telephone number. People all over the country need to listen to this number because he is licensed to give you financial advice for retirement in more than one state. So you need to listen to him. Listen to this number. It's 417-581-9222. 417-581-9222. And what's going to happen is when you call that number, be sure and tell them that you were listening to Changing Times. Don and Lynn sent you, because when you call them up and tell Lisa, she's going to send you a book called Safe Money Matters, which is the #1 best retirement planning book on Amazon, written by Brad Pistole. And now he's got the second book out called Bulletproof, which goes into more detail about how to protect your retirement income to where you don't lose it on taxes, you don't lose it because the stock market's crashing, you know, all those things that just tears up a person's retirement income at the end, and then it's too late to recover. You don't have to worry about that with Brad Pistole. He has all kinds of plans. I always tell people it's never too early to think about retirement. Unfortunately, a lot of us in this country don't think about retirement until about 60 years or age or older, because you think, well, we got Social Security and we got this, we got that, we got Medicare. Well, let me tell you what, with inflation the way it is today, you're going to have a lot more money than you have in another 5 years or 10 years when you retire, because if we continue this inflation rate today, I don't think it's sustainable. Surely we're going to find somebody that's smart enough to stop it. But honestly, we don't want to live in a world of inflation like this, and it's just tearing up our investments and tearing up our retirement planning for our seniors who have worked their whole life. And so Brad Pistole, I have put all my money in retirement. Janet and I have put all our money, and I would not recommend this person if he wasn't the best. So he has written articles all over the country and spoken all over the country. He writes articles for USA Today, financial section. That's where I first met him, was in Florida, reading an article in USA Today. And I just prayed then that I would find somebody like him in Ozark, Missouri. So that was pretty cool. So anyway, I think we've pretty well covered that. And then Hunter, I want to say anything. Right now, Medicare is really important for the people that's Medicare age. Right now is enrollment time. You need to call the 581-9222, 417-581-9222, and ask for a Hunter if you want to get Medicare advice and get really solid Medicare advice, because choosing the right Medicare plan will save you money. In fact, actually, it will make you money, and you've got to do that when you're in your retirement years. And so they've got the son that does Medicare, they've got the father that does investments and retirement, and so they've got you covered. But I think that's the end of our sponsorships, and so we're looking still for 4 more, and you can email me at my email, lynnmorris2012@gmail.com, if you're interested in sponsorship. We are talking to people, and as soon as we sign up 4 more, we'll be done. And we'll be set for this next year. But anyway, so we'll go ahead and get started back with Mark McKnelly. And Mark, one of the things that I know about your book, we're going to divide it up now into different chapters and parts of your book. So chapter 4 and 5 is what you kind of talked about a while ago. It is those 2 books are chapters are devoted for maybe a plan of action to really, and anyone that's listening can take those 2 chapters and develop a plan very similar to what you're doing,
Mhm.
right?
That's right. Yeah.
And so you've got a but when you read those 2 chapters, that's a template.
It really is. It should launch you into understanding who, in people of faith, who God has put it on your heart to serve.
Right.
Like, who do you have a burden for? And chapter 4 is the to, for, and with chapter. And this is really impactful for people because what I've seen is you can help from a to or paternal vantage point or approach where it's kind of just funding it, which is necessary. And these aren't all bad. Maternal, which is for, you come alongside and do a lot of it for them. And then there is the with. And so what the restoration approach really focuses on is the with approach. You've really got to get in the trenches with people who are in extreme poverty and walk them through a long-term process. And so once they understand chapter 4 and it's the with, you can't just check in on them a couple times a week and expect that that's going to bring a person out of extreme poverty. So once they understand that, chapter 5 is finding your burden, and I really showcase a few local people that I admire. John Stroop at Freeway Ministries, Dr. Jennifer Baker at Good Dads, New Pathway for Good Dads, and Scott Warren with Jobs for Life at Schweitzer. These are people who are doing similar ministry with a lot of the principles, restorative principles that are outlined in the book in their own context.
Mm-hmm.
Because does everybody who read this book need to start a recovery program in a homeless shelter? No. That it may flush itself out in that context in different places across the country, but the principles are universal. They can really be applied in a lot of different settings, certainly collective settings like churches and organizations, but again, even individuals can learn how to help people who are in extreme poverty and how the approaches that they've taken in the past, why those haven't worked in large part.
Very good.
Yeah.
So some of the chapters have stories about people,
Mm-hmm.
people
Yeah.
that you've served
That's right.
and helped at Schweitzer
Mm-hmm.
and also at Victory Mission.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So you kind of devoted a chapter and you kind of learn
Mhm.
how to treat that person and see the ups and downs of
Yeah.
what they went through. And
Yeah. That's
and everything.
rewind to chapter 3. That's return on investment. You were talking about investments earlier.
Mhm.
And we really, especially pastors and preachers like me, we like to preach to big crowds. We like those numbers. But when you look at the ministry of Jesus, he spent 3 years and deeply invested in 12 men.
Right.
And you could argue that there were even 3 within that 12 that he invested even deeper in. The 3, Peter, James, and John, they go on the Mount of Transfiguration. They go into the room where, the daughter is brought back to life. And so they get this inner access. And then Peter, even the one, right? There was one on which he would build his church and the gates of hell would not prevail against it. So in chapter 3, it really talks about how in this numbers-driven success, you got to reach a lot of people. And in relief ministry, that is true. Whenever you're trying to feed people through great ministries like Least of These, and Victory even has an arm where we send out thousands of holiday Thanksgiving baskets. And again, this book does not poo-poo relief ministry.
Right.
There is a time and a place for situational meeting of needs. But when that cycle needs broken and you need to get someone involved in a restorative process, at that point, you're really going to have to invest a lot of relational time. And when I look back on my time at Schweitzer and at Victory, the men and the women who are going from jail to pastoring a church, or 17 years in prison and buying a home when they finish the program. And you got these stories of violent offenders, 2 that have graduated in the past 2 years, violent offenders who have been told by family courts that they will never get custody of their children, have full custody of their children because they're the kid's mom or
Praise God.
outside the picture. Yeah. Praise God. And I mean, these stories that what I learned the hard way back at Schweitzer was there is no way to really bring somebody from the contrasting, the radical life change stories that I just mentioned, and I know all their names, without investing significant relational hours and content. There just is no substitute for it.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
And they have good intentions. And that's why you've got to have a plan and you've got to have support and other people to help you because, you may have the best intention. Like you said a while ago, bring somebody into your home, you kind of help them and stuff like that. But if you're not watching over them in all their spare time and stuff like that, it's probably not going to work too well.
It isn't, because if they haven't broken some of those underlying cycles, mismanagement of money, and different other aspects of their decision-making life, if you haven't addressed those, and you aren't more so addressing those, you aren't keeping them accountable in those areas, then yeah, your help is and could be just perpetuating a cycle. And that's where it goes to the book. I work very hard not to be critical or to malign those that are helping people in extreme poverty that way, because in large part, they have a good heart. Like, they want to help. They want to break the cycle too. And what I learned early on, because I was exactly where they were in 2012, 13, and 14, was that I just didn't know what I didn't know. Like, I was just going to keep paying the electric bill. And one of my favorite stories in the book, in one of my favorite chapter titles, "You Did What with the Money?" That's a chapter in Under Accountability. Sweet single mom coming to our Sunday night outreach service and pushing her kids she was from the neighborhood, so she's pushing the kids in the stroller, right? And I would be outside the door and welcome her in, and she's coming for months. And her husband, or the father of her kids, was in the house but not working. The parents of her husband were in the house not working, and she was a manager where she was working. I mean, she was doing it, and we had a huge heart for her. And so when the church got a vehicle donated, okay, we thought, oh my goodness, this was the whole photo op, right? The church gets a car and they give it to the single mom, and great story. How many ministries do you see put that on their social media? Weeks later, she's pushing the kids in the stroller back to the Sunday night outreach service, and I went, "Where's the car?" I had to sell it to pay the electric bill.
Oh no.
And it dawned on me. Giving even with the best intentions, without deeply understanding the underlying causes for that need and creating a two-way relationship where you could keep them accountable and you could begin to break that cycle, does unintentional harm, honestly. Because the family that donated the car was heartbroken. Right. They didn't intend for their donation to pay an electric bill because there were people in the home not working. Right. And so that's one example of one story in the book.
Yeah, and they probably didn't sell it for what it was.
I'm sure.
They probably didn't get anywhere near what it was worth.
They were desperate.
So really sad. But that's why they have to have training and management and oversight at all times.
The third principle, accountability.
Yeah. So if you picked one person out of your book that you want to kind of celebrate because they broke that cycle and just miracles happened because of all the work that your program did, who would you pick?
That's tough. There was 17 graduates of the 1-year program at Schweitzer, the Life Change Plan. And now we are, I need to plug the Victory Mission Restoration graduation is next Monday.
And you're the director.
I'm the director of restoration, and at James River Church West Campus at 6 p.m. next Monday, the 15th. You need to join us because I'm going to give one story of transformation and celebration, but really we're going to have 6 full program graduates that are going to be celebrated, and their life changes is dramatic and inspiring. And so if you can make it to James River West next Monday night at 6, I strongly recommend that. These graduations, we have them twice a year, and we've had, like I said, now this will be 33 full program graduates in 3 years. And it's hard to pick one story. I'm going to go with a young man who had been in and out of prison since he was in the foster care system, and he'd been in and out of juvie, in and out of prison, jail and prison, into his late 20s. And he came to us straight from Department of Corrections, and he got off the bus and we didn't pick him up. So he had kind of this middle ground. People getting out of Department of Corrections, they get a home plan. So there's a place they're supposed to go, report to the PO and all that. And he was just like, no, I'm not going to this place. They got rules and restrictions. They're going to tell me what to do. And he shows up, and he's skeptical, and he's sitting in the back of the room, which is very common. At first they're like, they don't know what to do with this. These people are talking about Jesus, and, are they going to have me rubbing beads and drinking Kool-Aid pretty soon? They don't know what's going on. But he plugged in. He became a residential supervisor. He plugged into his church, and he is now a pastor. He was an apprentice for us. So he graduated did an apprenticeship with us. He's a pastor at his home church. He just married a godly woman from a godly family and has got his kids back in his life. And I'm just amazing.
So praise the Lord. I mean, there's a victory right there.
Absolutely. And again, that's one of 33. And then there's the 17 from the Life Change Plan. So,
and God knows the victories that will continue from that too.
Absolutely. And, and back to that return on investment chapter, it's such a foundational chapter, chapter 3. We have seen, and I hope this doesn't discourage people, but we have seen nearly 500 men enter the restoration program in 4 years. And we have 33 full program graduates. And so, and that's okay, because many of them weren't ready for a process like this.
Some of the people that, Mark, that maybe didn't graduate still have benefited.
That's right.
And prospered for it. And some of them probably have found Jesus too.
Absolutely.
And so there's not negative.
Oh, the salvations are the men that came to the program and had a saving experience with Christ is in the hundreds.
Yeah,
for
so
sure.
it's not negative.
Not at all.
But we need to try to get more and more.
And then early in the process, they graduate programs that are foundational, like Jobs for Life, like New Pathway for Good Dads, like Living Free. And then, of course, the free counseling hours that we provide. So, yeah, I mean, the amount of change that happens in that first 6 months, even if they don't graduate the full program, is, those seed planting, right?
Sure.
So we planted seeds. But
definitely
one of the dramatic stories is that one.
Well, I know that Don was, and I don't want to run out of time. I know we're going to be getting close, and Matt will tell us when we're getting closer. But Don, one of the things that we were concerned about, with Thanksgiving, and we got 5 minutes left, with Thanksgiving and Christmas coming on, I know Victory Mission feeds a lot of people every day. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And you've got, they have a men's program that, 24 hours a day, 365 that can stay there at night.
That's right.
And I think, what'd you say, 152 people?
152 men? Bed men's shelter. Yeah.
Men's shelter.
And just quickly, we have 3 different services. We have an emergency shelter, which is free for somebody coming in off the street. They need a roof over their head and some food. We have a transitional shelter, which is a daily paid rate. Okay. And that's for men that are on fixed incomes and are between residential situations. That's for men that are done with their 30 days on the emergency side. So they kind of transition over. And then there's restoration.
Okay.
So
very good. Yeah. And then you've got the women's programs that are full-time programs. You don't have a place for them to stay at night, but they can attend these restoration programs.
Not for outreach, but the women's restoration is residential.
Okay.
So if a woman comes into our long-term residential restoration program, then they stay with us.
Okay. But you all are needing money, donations, because you guys are a nonprofit.
Correct.
And so you're needing money. And so, Don, we talked about what it takes $2 or $3 a day to feed.
Well, I would hope that everybody, wants to do something for veterans tomorrow. I'm sure a lot of the people who come into the organization are actual veterans. There's a lot of veterans that are in addiction and poverty and so forth. And so it'd be amazing if you could sponsor somebody to have a meal. It's only a couple of dollars. I get the mailing every year, and it's like just for a few bucks, you can provide a Thanksgiving dinner for somebody. And it's like, if you are fortunate enough to not worry about your Thanksgiving meal, I think this is the best time. I mean, it's always a good time to be giving, but this is the time that everybody should be looking to what can I do? And for just a couple of dollars, I know for me this year, when I get the mailing in, I'm going to have my son put the money in the envelope to send it off, because it's something you could include with your family and your kids. And to be a part of something should be an obligation that we do, Lynn.
Right.
But I have worked with Victory Mission through my dad's church when we've had to place people and not know what to do with them. It's like, we'll send them over there. We'll pay the sponsorship money.
Sure.
And so we're so thankful, because we have seen fruit come from this organization through our church too. So
well, thank you. Or thanks be to God.
Yeah, very good. So we're going to, Matt, how much time do we have left?
About 30, 45 seconds.
30, 45 seconds. Okay. Well,
an even minute.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, so we're going to run out of time, but hey, Mark, we appreciate you being here. Mark McKnelly. And I'm going to be at your book signing.
Yeah.
I'm going to have you sign a book.
November 27th, 10 to 1 at ABC Bookstore.
Yeah, ABC Bookstore in Springfield, Missouri. So if you're anywhere around Springfield area, this is a book that would be a great present for somebody and maybe you read it real quick, or go on Kindle and get it for 99 cents. I'll make sure Janet, my wife, does that, because she's the
Sure.
Kindle. I'm the book. I like the real book.
Yeah, sure.
She reads the Kindles. But then next week we're going to have another great guest. We're going to have Lisa Farmer with Harmony House.
Oh.
Do you know Lisa Farmer?
Yeah.
She's the director there, and they do a great job. They're the largest women and children's shelter here in Springfield, Missouri. And they've got a lot of need too. So we got a lot of great organizations, but I hope that everyone, just like Don says, if you can afford it, do something for somebody else. And we'll be back next Wednesday, same time, 10 a.m. And have a great Veterans Day.
Be the change.
Be the change, be a difference maker.
Amen.
Under God, not tyranny. That's what it means to really dream. 1, 2, 3.